Hello everyone, this is Zflex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video, we're going to be looking at 7 Lines song Only Now featuring Tyler Graves. So if you haven't watched my videos in the past, I basically break down these videos into 3 separate sections. I have an intro backstory section, then a breakdown analysis section, and then lastly an outro section. So I want to thank Rihanna Kristen. I hope I said your name correctly. You left a comment on my smoke video and I read it, and I did appreciate the fact that I'm helping out other people who are maybe thinking about going into music production or interested in music production or just interested in music and didn't hear things within the song that maybe I heard. So it's really cool that you left that feedback for me, because I'm not really sure how these videos affect other people. These are just things I just, hear, and I figured, maybe a couple other people might not hear it, so I can let other people hear it. But if the breakdowns are doing pretty well, in terms of, me giving out factual information, then um, that is the goal of what I was, trying to do in the first place, is maybe, point out a few sounds here and there that maybe I heard that someone else didn't hear. So thank you, Rihanna, for that. And this is the video that you were recommending that I do an APA video for, and here it is. So this song, I think I don't know if I heard it in the past, but I might have missed it when it was released a couple years ago. But the style of the song, from what I've heard in the few listens, is very similar to a song by Tritonal. That song is called "Someone to Love You" or "Someone to Love Me." It's like a kind of electronic, kind of progressive house song, but the build-up is very similar, and the structure is actually pretty similar to this song in terms of melodic dubstep style, or in the build-ups with the arps. And the whole song structure in itself actually reminds me of another artist that I kind of broke down their song, and it's Drop Tower. Drop Tower made a song in the past that was called Trance Step, which was very much like this. It's kind of like melodic dubstep mixed with trance. And I don't remember which song exactly, but I remember one of his songs had a very similar style to this song Only Now. So when I listened to the song the first time, I was like, oh, this sounds like Drop Tower, and this sounds kind of like tritonal. Um, and a few of 7 Lines' other songs as well, because this is his song and this is kind of his style. So just want to point that out there. 7 Lines I've known of for quite a while. I haven't listened to a lot of his songs, but I've listened to like a few here and there, like every year over the years. So I think I discovered him through a Rogue remix a long time ago for Days to Come. And that was, I want to say, like 2012 or something like that. That's the first time I heard 7 Lines, and then I listened to some of his music here and there over the years. So his style of music's really good. I really do like his Monster Cat releases. Cold Hearted's really great, and he's just one of the pioneers of, I would say, melodic dubstep in the style of which he kind of makes it. So anyways, this is 7 Lines song Only Now featuring Tyler Graves, and we'll get into it. Okay, so starts off with an ARP. Reminds me of trance. Reminds me of a Drop Tower song as well, because he starts off his songs with some ARPs as well. And reminds me a lot of older style, almost techno music. I guess back then it wasn't called EDM. It reminds me of a lot of kind of the older techno music. There's a little bit of like a virtual self, Porter Robinson's alter ego, a little mixed in there as well in terms of the style. And I'll kind of point that out going forward as well. But I noticed kind of that vibe of kind of like 90s EDM song, kind of like maybe mid to late 90s, maybe early 2000s kind of techno EDM. So definitely notice that there. And then there's a nice kind of reverse vocal reverb delay that goes right into the vocal, which is a similar technique used in other, songs with vocals. So, and then I think I heard a piano being introduced, but we'll keep going.
Eyes can't catch my mind when it starts to crumble. I can't fight this war inside, but I try to tighten my grip and stay above water when all the
Okay, so for the most part, you hear the arp and the piano playing the chord progression, which I think is really nice, with the vocal playing as well. Um, I would say the focus is more, at least, on the chord progression in this part. At least from what I hear in my headphones, because basically the vocal doesn't sound super super loud, so it doesn't seem like that's like the main focus so far. But there's percussion that comes in, which are claps, and they start creating the rhythm for this section. And within this section here, where I just paused, I like how there's breaks in the vocal. So, like the vocalist Tyler Graves, she sings, and then there's like a space or breath of air, and then the next vocal comes in. It's not just like one like continuous phrase, which you normally hear in other songs. So that's a very interesting technique used there. And I do like that, actually. It breaks it up a little bit, makes you focus a little bit more on the certain vocal parts. So overall, let's keep going.
voices get too loud and all the walls are falling down. Your touch saves me somehow. Move closer, there's only now.
Okay, so what I noticed first thing is the ARP sound almost sounds like it's going through a flanger. There is some filtering going through that harp sound, but it also sounds like it's going through a type of flanger, because a flanger basically is like an effect that kind of, I don't know, kind of distorts the sound, but it kind of cuts it in and out. I don't really know how to explain it unless you kind of put in a sound through a flanger, but it kind of, the sound kind of goes in and out a little bit and kind of distorts a little bit. It sounds like a flanger. And this is the build up section. You hear more of the synth sounds come in within the section. You do hear some VFX. You do hear the kick come in. And there is the vocal playing, but it's, again, not saying like a whole vocal phrase. There's like a lot of gaps in between. So I almost thought the vocal was going to end in the buildup, and then I heard the vocal again. So it seems like the gaps were a little bit longer between each vocal sections. And with a lot of melodic dubstep songs, there's like a breath of air, and then there's like a big like snare. I don't know if it's like a reverse snare into a snare, or just like the snare to like, with a ton of reverb and delay, just to like impact snare. I use that in a couple of my songs in the past, and it does work pretty well. It does kind of give you kind of that smack before the drop hits. So I don't know if it breaks a lot of the tension, but it breaks some of the tension, and then once the drop hits, then like the tension's broken. So pretty interesting. I know that's like a more common melodic dubstep technique. So anyways, let's keep going.
In the dark.
All right, so within this first chorus and drop, It's a traditional dubstep rhythm of halftime rhythm. So kick on one, snare on three. Sometimes a kick is thrown in here and there in between the one and the three, but the snare usually is on the third beat. And the sound that's playing sounds more like a piano or a keyboard combined with a synth sound to play the chords, or a pluck sound to make it sound more like plucks. And then there's nice little sound design sounds that are unique to Seven Lions, like different wubs and different kind of leads, like da-da-da-da-da. That's like fill-ins, I guess you almost want to say, having like a calm response between each other. Those are nice additions. Reminds you of like the dubstep and complextro kind of styles of music where there's a lot of calm response within those sections with, the main chord progression, and then different alternate maybe wubs or different sounds, or melodies added in to answer those phrases. And overall, this section was pretty good. I noticed the vocal was not really introduced within the section at all. And there seemed to be some supersaws, but not as many as traditional melodic dubstep. There's more focus on the pluck sound, which I think to me reminds me a lot of Drop Towers music. This kind of melodic dubstep drop, kind of with the piano playing. Drop Tower did that a lot in his music, having the piano is kind of be the main focus with some synthetic sounds playing the chord progression on the bottom. So that's a nice effect. And just the overall vibe of like the build up sections remind me of Virtual Self and of Tritonal song Someone or Somewhere to Love You or something like that. Those two songs kind of have that kind of ARP, but a little bit of like a early 90s kind of vibe ARP, not like a more, I guess, current sounding ARP. It's more of like a older techno sounding ARP. So anyways, now is the break section, and then the vocals introduced right back in right from the start. So let's keep going.
Dark, your light is all that I need to protect my soul from the sharks, destructive thoughts that you melt away. 'Cause your love is the answer when all
Okay, so what I did here in this section was the ARP come back, and that ARP is going through some type of flanger or something, because there is some like movement within that ARP. That's not just the ARP sound itself. It sounds like there's an effect going on with some movement there. The ARP sounds paired with the piano playing the chord progression. So those two are layered together, which is really nice. Really gives the fullness of the sound. And the vocals within this section are pretty interesting because I do notice some like harmonization with the vocals in a couple points or sections within that break section. And then I do notice a almost calm response with the vocals. So like towards the end or before I paused here, there was a part of the vocal which said one thing, and then there was like another a vocal like a little bit after that vocal. So let's just say the example, the word was all, and then like the word all was in a little bit higher of a pitch, but moved a little bit backwards to kind of have a answer. So the initial vocal would say all, and then there's like a higher pitch all, a little bit off from the main vocal, and a little bit higher pitch to just give a response. So nice little calm response and harmonizations within this section, which I noticed was different than from what I heard in the very beginning of the song. So, anyways, let's keep going.
the voices get too loud and all the walls are falling down. Your touch saves me somehow.
Okay, so structurally, in terms of like instrumental and percussion, it's pretty similar. Actually, within this section, I focused mainly more on the vocals, and I did notice a lot more harmonization and a little more calm response within this section. I'm not sure if I missed it prior in the beginning, but I did notice within this section there were a couple sections. I think in the section of the vocal it says "for all" and something something. I kind of forget, but I noticed there was the same vocal, lower in volume and a little bit lower in pitch, that harmonized within that section. And then there were kind of um, call and response sections with the vocal where, like, let's just say "Only Now" would play um, from the original vocals, and then you'd hear kind of a little bit after, almost like a delay, saying "Only Now" in like a higher pitch, or maybe the word "now" in a higher pitch. So it's a nice, almost like manual delay, because I'm listening to the effects. It sounds like there's a lot of reverb. There is some delay, but doesn't sound like there's like a huge amount of delay. So it sounds more like of a manual delay where maybe Seven Lions, as I mentioned previously, chop the vocal from the original and then offset it a little bit to make a more manual delay with a little bit pitch up or down. So the vocals are pretty good, and we'll get into this section. So let's keep going. Okay, so within this drop, structurally everything's pretty much the same again. This time I did notice the hi-hats. They're a little harder to hear because it sounds like a lot of the low end and even a lot of the high end was cut out. So maybe like a high mid was only left in, and they seem pretty low. So they're playing in there along with the halftime rhythm. But what I noticed here is that the vocal hook of the name of the song, "Only Now," is playing in the background a little more frequently. Not really as a vocal chop, but it's almost like a chop, but not as precise as some of the other vocal chops, as you'll hear a little bit later. But the "Only Now" has a lot of reverb on it and is lower in volume. So it's in the background playing like "Only Now," and then like maybe the next measure starts and say "Only Now." And then after that, you hear the vocal introduced right before the end of the drop, which is completely different from the first drop because there was not really much of the vocal, or not at all the vocal present there. And then you do hear within this section now the vocal chopping, the actual chops of like syllables. So interesting with the different production techniques. So, anyways, let's keep going. Okay, so I just wanted to note the buildup was pretty much structurally the same. It's just you hear that vocal chop being played a little more frequently. So let's continue to the end of this song. Okay, so that was Seven Lions' song "Only Now" featuring Tyler Graves. Back up a little bit. So it goes into the 4/4 rhythm. I would say more of the techno part, or the trance part, as you would maybe call it. So 4/4 rhythm, kick on every beat. Sounds like a snare or clap on the 2 and the 4. The synth changes to be more of like I almost want to say like a 90s, early 2000s kind of synth um, lead sound. And this part here reminds me a lot of Drop Tower and kind of Virtual Self, with that kind of 80s, 90s kind of theme with the kind of percussion switch up. Virtual Self, the song Ghost Voices, which is the song I'm thinking about, in itself is kind of a more electronic song, so it's not this fast. But Drop Tower has music that's relatively within this range or a little bit faster. So very similar to those two songs from what I can tell. But 4/4 rhythm, and then you hear Only Now in the background. Not so much chopped as it was in the build up section where it was really chopped like by each syllable. You just hear the vocal hook of Only Now in the background come in on every, maybe beginning of every measure. So overall, this is 7 Lions song, Only Now, featuring Tyler Graves. And this is a really good song, actually. Structurally, it's not the most amazing song, other than maybe the last drop where it changes, but 7 Lions does include a lot of variation with the vocals, which I actually like quite a bit because there's subtle, kind of nuanced things that were kind of added in. Kind of like this outro here, where there's like a piano sound that outros out. If you don't really pay attention or listen to the end of the song, you might not notice. I don't think I noticed the first 2 or 3 times listening to this song, that kind of outro piano sound. So the vocal variation is really good in the song. I like the vibe of the song in terms of like kind of the melodic trance step, if you want to call it that. Really good. And the vocals, yeah, just the I think that's probably the best part of the song is the vocals. The melodic dubstep drops, I mean, they're pretty good and kind of pretty standard for a 7 Lions song. Most of his music's pretty good, but structurally, a lot of his melodic dubstep's pretty similar. He has his own unique sound design sounds, kind of mixed with either a pluck or like a super saw, kind of playing along with the chord progression. But I think the vocals are what really made this song shine, and that kind of switch up drop. So overall, just a really good song. And then thank you, Rihanna, Reina. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. My apologies, but thank you for recommending this song. This is a really good song, and if you have any more recommendations in the future, I'll be glad to try and record a video. But if anyone else has any recommendations or you know wants to leave comments, definitely do. The comments do help the channel, but really I'm more interested in hearing what you guys have to say. And I always look forward when I upload videos to see if anyone actually leaves a comment or not. So again, thank you again. And if you guys haven't checked out 7 Lions music, definitely do. He has some really good music all over the place on YouTube, whether it be on his own record label here, Ophelia, or on Monstercat, or on different promotional channels. So, anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next A Producer's Approach video. All right, have a good one, everyone. Peace.